Part 34. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 331. In fact, Shen Xian's choice of going to the surface world also gave thousands of players in the Taxili area a surprise. How could the Dungeon Lord not take the road they were familiar with? Going to the surface world is tantamount to self-destruction. But what the players did not expect was that the Lord was so difficult and actually chose the surface world. After all, he was a force in the top 50 and dared to do what the players did not dare to do. However, the surface world in the Taxili area was empty, the light was bright, and the vision was far. In the first 10 minutes, Shen Xian's team avoided countless pursuits, but then the players dispatched the Air Force, and one Air Force after another monitored the surface, and Shen Xian became less likely to hide. Although the enemies behind him were still chasing him, the most fatal one was still in front of him, and there was no way to avoid it. Among the several forces chasing him, Mendelevium in Siberia City was the most persistent. The treasure was in his territory and should have belonged to him. Now that it could no longer be found, how could Mendelevium not get back at him? Unfortunately, Shen Xian used the trick of sacrificing a pawn to save the chariot, and asked me, not a thief, to sneak in front of the player with an epic accessory called Red Earth Beetle. Acting is a very important aspect. If you can deceive the player and make the player unaware that he is using a trick, then you will succeed. Shen Xian asked me, not a thief, to do this. He was only level 43, and he could make up for it by leveling up seriously for a day. As a result, he was heroically killed by many players and dropped the item Red Earth Beetle. Red Earth Beetle, Epic, Accessory, Physical Fitness 3000, Condition Level 90, Skill Pain Healing, restores 1100 HP of all friendly units within 1 km, Casting Interval 24 hours, Life Shelter, restores 15,500 HP of designated units, 5,500 mana, Release Interval 6 hours, Talent Vitality, increases HP of friendly units within 1 km by 1. It was such an epic item that caused fierce competition among players. The conservative value of an epic item is about 1 million RMB. There was no supervisor at the time. When those players who had no income in real life saw this scene, chaos was ignited, and players desperately scrambled for it. As long as they get it, as long as they sell it, they don't need to work for a few years. When the benefits are beyond their acceptance, players can ignore everything. Even if some players remain rational, they are as small and insignificant as ants among the vast majority of players who want to compete. Mendelevium wanted to be a bystander. He wanted to catch up with the Lord quickly instead of getting the Red Earth Beetle in front of him, but it was too difficult to stay out of it due to the influence of the surrounding players. The players in Taxili had an internal conflict because of the Red Earth Beetle. Shen Xian took the opportunity to escape with his people. When the players realized it, they would definitely not be able to catch up, but the players did not give up. They even persuaded the players on the route of Dusk City to chase and intercept them. If they let them go all the way, they would not benefit much, but if the Lord was blocked, they would at least have the possibility of robbing. Shen Xian continued to move towards Dusk City with dozens of guardians. The whole journey took 5 hours, which was considered a very fast movement. Along the way, they saw several groups of players who thought they were at the end of their rope and wanted to take advantage of the fire to rob, such as the No. 7 Guild in Morocco and the BCD Studio in Indonesia. They were all eliminated by them without exception. Unless they brought more than 100 elites with an average level of 60, it would be as difficult to stop them as a heroic mission. It stands to reason that the Shadow Dragon's attributes will be reduced in the sun, and it is easy to hang up, so it should not appear, and it is easy to expose the target. Faced with the players who learned their lesson and sent a large number of air forces, Shen Xian ordered the Shadow Dragon to go up to the sky for reconnaissance and to carry out containment and harassment. With the assistance of the Shadow Dragon, the next journey was much smoother. After 1 hour and 32 minutes, it left the Taxili area and left the players who received the task behind. Even the pursuit of Mendelevium was finally thrown off. This army from Taxili, which was the most well prepared, finally left with full blood and returned with half blood, without any results. The surrounding areas of Taxili are not within the scope of the regional mission, but players can rob according to the game settings. Even if there is no mission reward, Shen Xian brought a dozen items, and the Guardian brought more than 100 items. It is still the target of the players coveted. It is rare that the Lord only brought so few people, and it would be a shame not to risk his life to grab a handful. The players were determined to die if they failed, so Shen Xian was in constant trouble, and it seemed that the situation was getting worse. In addition, the previous players had learned from their experience and were not afraid of his roundabout tactics and escape tactics, but put in enough effort in reconnaissance, planning, and command. Shen Xian encountered several waves of difficult enemies. They entered the territory of Morius, where there were also thousands or even tens of thousands of Morius players. At this time, many guardians were half blood and half demon, and the efficiency of continuing to fight was very low. Shen Xian once again went against the players' ideas and quietly returned to the underground. The underground world in Morius was a prosperous world, with dark passages extending in all directions. It was not as barren and desolate as Taxili, and it was not easy to be discovered by walking in the underground passages. Now the players were even more depressed. When the previous mission started, they had to be rampant in the desert, but when it didn't work, they hid in the underground layer and became turtles. As a result, they got nothing. The players who didn't get the equipment scolded them, and the players who were killed scolded them even more. The most fierce scolding was still those players who thought they had figured out the rules of the Lord's actions. If the Lord had sent some troops to defeat them, the players might have admitted defeat. However, they were so close, but they just couldn't reach it. Of course, many players would be mad. While many players were complaining, Shen Xian, Fulei and the Guardian had already hidden in a secret place adjacent to the dark swamp in the Morius area to recover. The Guardian's War Wizard and Magic Knight enjoyed the treatment they had never received before. Each of them had a bottle of extremely effective recovery potion, drinking leisurely while appreciating the epic equipment they wore, and their loyalty increased by 1 to 2 points to varying degrees. If they quietly ran underground, the surface players might find them less. In the past year, there were very few incidents of the surface world breaking through the underground layer. There was no opponent in front of Shen Xian except the underground forces. A game guild called Lewis Brothers appeared. I thought I would not make a mistake in the chapter title, but I didn't expect it to be possible. I tried to modify the previous chapter title, but it seems that I can only change the chapter content but not the title. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 332. The Lewis Guild is a French guild. As a country with a strong romantic color, the number of players stationed in France remains high. The elite of the two battalions are second-level knights. Wario, the president of the Lewis Guild, has long prepared the army to ambush Shen Xian. The intelligence resources of large guilds are powerful. They will not concentrate the power of the guild in one place. There are often players of the guild in every corner of the world, and intelligence is transmitted through them. Therefore, when the regional mission was just opened, when it was learned that one of the two major camps was Dusk City, it would definitely pass through the territory of the Lewis Guild, and Wario secretly ambushed and wanted to wait for the opportunity. Wario brought the army to contact the Lord, and surrounded the army of Dusk City with the advantage of numbers. They are not afraid of Dusk City's revenge for the time being. First, the Lewis Guild is attached to the Terrace Company, which is one of the top 30 forces in the country. This force controls more than 4,000 territories bordering the eastern part of the Pharaoh Empire and the Phoenix Council. Second, the Lewis Guild and Dusk City are separated by the Dark Swamp, and the Vank family is blocking them. Warayo did not modify his appearance like ordinary players, and kept his fatness in reality. He wore a wide mail armor and wielded two pointed hammers. The knight behind him stared at the surrounded Shen Xian vigilantly. Moreover, the surrounding area was set up with a level 9 magic barrier, which could reduce the movement speed of units in the area by 20%. There were many hidden assassins and terrifying traps. Facing the well-prepared Lewis Guild, Shen Xian needed to fight a difficult battle. Warayo's eyes were small, and compared to his round face, his eyes were as small as sesame seeds. Lord, my conditions are not high. As long as you hand over 5 epic items, our Lewis Guild will let you pass and protect you until you leave our guild's sphere of influence. It only takes another 100 kilometers along the Lewis Guild's sphere of influence to enter the Dusk Hills. If it is true, Shen Xian's safety is guaranteed. However, is Warayo really that easy to talk to? He had a treacherous expression on his face, his lips slightly parted. What he saw might not be the truth. Some people are good at hiding their thoughts. Maybe Warayo was telling the truth, maybe it was just a beautiful lie. Shen Xian smiled slightly, and said to Warayo, who was in his early 70s, "Of course, if we can get security guarantees, Dusk City is willing to sign an agreement." Agreement? Warayo's face flashed a subtle change. "Okay, of course there is no problem." He extended his hand in a friendly manner, wanting to shake hands with the Lord. "How about we sign it as such?" He took out a prepared agreement. Warayo had also thought about the agreement at the beginning, using 5 epic items in exchange for the Lord's safety. Signing an agreement is similar to an alliance. If you regret it, you will lose your reputation, so most players will not regret the agreement. Time is tight, and the pursuit behind is endless. The two sides quickly signed the agreement, and Shen Xian took out 5 epic items and gave them to Warayo. Seeing so many epic equipment, Warayo was so excited that he didn't even bother to check and ask the knight beside him to put it into his bag. But he changed his mind and thought that the Lord easily transferred 5 epic items. The treasures he carried must be more than a dozen, maybe more, 30 or 40. He made a decision that made him proud, to go back on his word and lose 10%, about 6,000 points of reputation, in exchange for the Lord's life. However, just when he wanted to order the players and the knight to attack, when the system showed that the agreement was broken, the Lord on the opposite side suddenly came over and stabbed him with a gun, causing more than 4,000 damage. When the agreement was broken, Shen Xian would also get the news. The moment Shen Xian attacked was just a few tenths of a second after the agreement was broken, so Shen Xian did not suffer any punishment. Then, the war mages fired an instant energy bomb each, with an average damage of 1,700 points, instantly causing more than 30,000 points of damage to Warayo. Warayo, a level 70, did not have much health, and the two teams of knights were not many and could not hide behind, so Warayo was killed instantly. In contrast, before Warayo was killed instantly, he ordered the knights to release skills, and several white lights shot towards Shen Xian, causing an average of 1,400 damage, and did not even knock down 1/30 of Shen Xian's health. This process lasted only a few seconds, and the knights who reacted then launched a counterattack. There was no chaos because of Warayo's death. The knights with high AI had a much stronger ability to respond to special situations than ordinary units. Go, Shen Xian picked up several pieces of equipment that had just been handed over to him from Warayo. The magic knight who received the order stepped in front to cover the war mage's retreat. The knights formed a dense team, turned on the aura with magic resistance, and attacked them, but it was too difficult to kill a war mage or magic knight with about twice their attributes. The army of Dusk City did not move fast, but it was still very convenient to save lives. Two Jukan marched quickly along the second underground floor with the bloody cross. Their movement speed was no different from that of ordinary cavalry, and they only needed to wait for a few dozen minutes to get reinforcements. Wait another half an hour and we will get reinforcements. Shen Xian received the latest information from Miss Xiao about the reinforcements, and said to the soldiers below, and then led them to a dark passage marked as the second underground floor on the map. Blood Cross also went to the second underground floor. Only in this way can he avoid the eyes and ears of many players. If nothing unexpected happens, the two sides will meet in half an hour. And the main reinforcement of Dusk City, nearly 10,000 soldiers, will arrive at the border of Dusk City in 2 hours. Marseille, France. I'm so angry. Wario walked out of the room and angrily punched the sturdy table a few times. The table turned into a pile of broken wood under his heavy blows. The Thales Group is the strongest military-industrial enterprise in France. The background of the guild president who can be related to Thales is naturally extraordinary. After Wario went offline, he immediately contacted the president of Thales, who can be compared with Nihilum in France. Raphaeron, what made you so angry? Lord, it was the Lord who deceived me. Shameless guy, how did he know I would regret it? Could he read my mind? Read my mind? Haha, how is that possible? You are too bad at hiding your purpose. Don't you know that every time you hear money, your breathing will be rapid and your heartbeat will speed up? You should have attacked Dusk City from the beginning, so that you could still succeed. The president of Terres is called Son of Bourbon. It is said that his ancestors were upper-class nobles who were passed down from generation to generation and had a prominent status. Unless it is a devil, and a big devil, he can spy on our thoughts. Don't worry, even if the Lord escapes, it's nothing. Don't value the gains and losses of the moment. Besides, the time for us to find the Lord is approaching. Could it be that the Lord's true identity has been found? Wario, who seemed to know something about the Terres Group and the secrets of Terres in the 9 major banks, asked in surprise. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 333. The son of Bourbon said calmly, Raphaeron, there are some things you shouldn't know. It is your greatest responsibility to run the Lewis Guild well. Raphaeron was frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. He almost forgot how he got this job. Knowing too much will only bring disaster. It is not uncommon to kill people to keep secrets. Who can guarantee that he is not a spy of the door? But the son of Bourbon continued, I can trust you. I will tell you what you want to know. In exchange, we may need your strength. Raphaeron is an illegal account, which means that he can do things that ordinary people can't do. Illegal accounts can certainly be used in the country. In this technologically advanced era, there is nothing that people can't think of. Raphaeron knows that the Thales Group used to be mainly engaged in military industry and has a close relationship with the government. In addition to the old-fashioned military industry, the current Thales also includes the Thales Bank, one of the 9 major banks. At the same time, in the country, the 2 strongest guilds in France include Thales and Nihilum. So, have you confirmed the identity of the Lord you have been pursuing? Not sure, but after several years of investigation, we think we are only one step away from the truth. After the son of Bourbon finished speaking, he changed the subject and said, do you know how to identify a person? In the past, we often used facial recognition. In a small country with a population of tens of millions, this method is the most convenient. But now, there are more than 10 billion people in the world, and there are no less than thousands of people with the same appearance. We also need to consider the errors caused by age, environment, and even plastic surgery. It is difficult to find a person. Although we have genes, the data is stored in the country's most confidential database, and we can't get it. To say that a country's top secrets are not guarded against, there are probably only 2 organizations in the world that can do it. Like voice, fingerprints are more difficult to obtain. The more technical things are used, the less likely it is to find the Lord. We Thales used facial recognition to find the Lord from thousands of suspicious people around the world. Now, we finally know where he is. The son of Bourbon seemed a little proud. He is in Shanghai. He is no different from ordinary people. Fortunately, he has not had plastic surgery. It took us 10 years to find him. But why did the Thales group treat the Lord like this? He seems to be just a player. Player? You are right. The Lord is indeed just a player, but he is not an ordinary player. He is one of the strongest players in the world. He caused the October incident in the game Gods and Demons 10 years ago. Gods and Demons is the last sound of South Korea, a major online game development country, in the online game research and development industry. The investment is equivalent to billions of RMB. Who would have thought that the game would mysteriously die after only 2 months of public beta because of a perverted money-making bug in the game, which was exploited by someone with ulterior motives? In the online gaming world 10 years ago, bugs were rare, and players would never be punished for bugs. On the contrary, the game companies were responsible, and they needed to eliminate all possible bugs before the public beta test, which was clearly stipulated by law. The special feature of Gods and Demons is that it is the last online game that does not use a simulation system. Nowadays, during the testing phase, online games will simulate fake players equivalent to the server's capacity under the control of a super server, and simulate at 100 times the speed or higher. If there are no problems for a month, it is equivalent to guaranteeing that there will be no bugs in 8 years in actual operation. For example, the kingdom has undergone a simulation test equivalent to 10,000 years, and there will be no bugs in 10,000 years. Gods and Demons did not use it, so this situation occurred. Did the Lord do the thing that caused the terrorist company to lose 3.4 billion and the world's players to lose 12 billion? Yes, the first-level administrator of the gate died a long time ago, and the Lord, as his successor, how could he not have such ability? But now the Lord is becoming more and more rational, and his flaws are getting fewer and fewer, so he is not easy to find, because the incidents he stirred up are full of doubts and difficult to identify. Ralph Aaron couldn't imagine that the Lord seemed to be only in his 20s. Could it be that he had done such a thing when he was just in junior high school? Too scary. It's really hard to imagine that there is such a person in the world. Although Leifel Allen is fat, he is very confident in his skills. It's not about the country, but he used to be an instructor of the French Special Forces, and he has never neglected training. For an ordinary person who is powerless in reality, it can be said to be a piece of cake. However, recalling the scene when he met the Lord on the first underground floor, Ralph Aaron felt a sense of oppression in his heart. Was it caused by the level, or was it a kind of subtle influence of reality on the virtual? He felt that the images of the two were overlapping each other. Unfortunately, the only incident with more records is that one. Since then, it has been more difficult to catch the Lord's handle, resulting in us not having more information. Do you need me to assassinate him? Yes, just be careful. The Lord is not without helpers. His current situation is not so easy to kill because of some special reasons. Is it the Lock Consortium? You react quickly. Not only that, there are some other things. You alone are not enough, you need a few helpers. The son of Bourbon said seriously. Let's go back to the game first. It's a pity that your regional mission is not completed. The Lord seems to have more than 100 epic items. 100, Ralph Aaron was dumbfounded. It was not that simple. If possible, he hoped that the boss of the Bald Group, Mendelevium, could investigate what was buried there, even if they might not find anything. Shen Xian arrived at the city gate with hundreds of items, and the mission was completed. After getting rid of the entanglement of the Lewis Guild, there was no problem. He joined the Bloody Cross and the army at the border of Dusk Hill. The closer to Dusk Hill, the greater the influence of Dusk City. No force dared to touch its reverse scale. He was allocated more than 10 million experience points, and then the treasures were secretly taken to the city center to prevent the shocking scene from being seen by the players and causing unpredictable troubles. "I'm afraid the fourth elemental gate cannot be excavated," Frey said with some depression and some joy. From her expression, God knows what her relationship with Stormlord Gonia is. She probably thinks it doesn't matter if Gonia sleeps for a few more years. "But I need to take back the items left by Elias, unless the Lord can prove that you have the power to protect them." Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buledin Lau Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 334. Free remained silent after speaking, waiting for Shen Xian's answer. Shen Xian pondered, thinking that the news of more than 300 epic items leaked, things were a bit tricky. There was absolutely no problem leaving dozens of items, and there was room for negotiation for 100 items. The problem was that if a man was innocent, he would be guilty of possessing a treasure. If Dusk City did not have the ability to protect the items, they would only become the target of siege. The player forces could not hinder him. There were only a dozen of the top 50 forces in the Night Star continent, scattered in all directions. What he was worried about was the NPCs. He wondered if there would be greedy intentions among the NPCs, like the Tower of Silence in the past. More than 300 epic items, excluding some epic and legendary materials, the most valuable ones to keep were actually the items with strategic value. Items of strategic value can improve the attributes of the entire army and the entire territory. Imagine the superposition effect of 10 proofs of the Great Lord, with 100 satisfaction and 100 loyalty in the territory, which means that the player can directly recruit the population of the territory as the most devout believers, whether piety is slightly related to loyalty, and can recruit them as the army. As long as the food supply is sufficient, this million-strong army will be invincible, or the success rate of recruiting elites and heroes is terrifyingly high, which is impossible with ordinary equipment. Maybe he should choose to keep some strategic equipment in exchange for more benefits. Shen Xian searched through the list of items. The collection of the Elemental Gate is indeed gorgeous. There are countless treasures preserved from ancient times. If possible, he really hopes to keep them all. For example, a legendary item called the Temptation Chain can control NPCs and players and make them tell their secrets. Things like bank passwords and home addresses will of course be blocked, but if you identify the soul center in the Dark Dragon City like last time, you will definitely get the real secret with the Temptation Ring. There are many things like this. How about it, have you decided? If the things are placed in the fire elemental plane, no one can get them. What do you think? No problem, but I want to keep some that Dusk City can use. Free thought for a while. No problem, 10 legendary items, 100 epic items. Similar to Shen Xian's idea, if there are more, Dusk City will definitely be remembered by others, and things will always be a bit troublesome. Half equipment props, half blueprints and materials, Lord, you choose. Free's next sentence is the key to the restriction. Don't look at the building blueprints or forging formulas that can choose 5 pieces. In fact, rare formulas can be sold at epic prices. In the kingdom, the technology that can reach the legendary level is almost as buggy as the artifact. Obviously, there are only a few legendary blueprints and technologies in the Elemental Gate, and they can only be replaced by materials. Even so, Dusk City is making a lot of money. If you talk about the benefits of the last war with the Great Fortress and Blood Moon City, the income of the Elemental Gate is at least twice the sum of the 2 times, which belongs completely to Dusk City. There is no choice in terms of books and technology, only a legendary Terretan construction data collection. Terretan construction data collection, legendary, tells the story of a miracle lost in history. Author is the son of magic, Ziloda, condition 60 level, reward experience 18 million, related auxiliary skill level upgrade 1 level, open the technical rainbow barrier, increase the city's ability to resist large-scale forbidden spell level magic and divine arts, reduce damage by up to 50%, increase the effect of the defense barrier, up to 25%, build the alchemy door, open the resource-free exchange function, reconstruct the material with sacred alchemy, crystal tower, make the life value of city buildings completely shared. Unless the crystal tower is destroyed, the life value of the crystal tower itself is not shared with other buildings. Then choose the 4 legendary materials of Holy Spirit Crystal, Divine Iron, Void Vortex, and Death Flower, and the legendary Shen Xian took great effort to choose 5 equipment of absolutely inestimable value. Illuma Sword of Heroic Spirit, legendary level according to historical records. Sin, who was known as the King of Kings in the Far East, was born after bathing in holy relics on the day of his birth. A divine sword accompanied him. The name of the sword was Illuma, symbolizing heaven-given glory. Sin's true identity is guessed by many magicians. It comes with a heroic quest, God's ambition, attack power 4200, strength 2500, agility 2200, attack enhancement 40%, attribute enhancement 15%, condition level 90, skill kingship. The minimum loyalty of the residents of the territory is 45, and the result of limiting the lower limit is that the residents who are dissatisfied with the Lord will only leak information instead of leading the enemy to attack their homes. Talent Dreamland, increase the output of all resources in the territory by 7%, reduce the judgment requirements for building upgrades by 35%, and increase the speed of technology research and development by 12%. Unbeatable Oath, legendary. In the Dark Age, the main material plane is facing the doomsday disaster of being swallowed by hell and the abyss. In countless struggles, the hand-shaped emblem held by a kingdom soldier became the last hope for the desperate skill. Eternal Aura, the unit will not be reborn immediately after death, enjoy 60 seconds of invincibility, obtain a 30% attribute enhancement effect, and die after the end, with a range of 20 kilometers. Emerald Tree Staff, the staff of the legendary Archdruid Vandersar, made of the trunk of the World Tree, with an attack power of 2500 and a condition level of 84. It increases the food production of the territory by 30%, the wood production by 20%, and the skill level of the Druid professional faction by 2 levels. Skill transplantation, swapping the terrain of one area with the terrain of another area, such as turning the ocean into a desert. The changed terrain will be affected by the surrounding terrain and assimilated. The last 2 items are called Time Movement and Dark Sun Crown. The former can intercept the state and attributes of units in a certain area at a certain moment, and then backtrack within a limited time to revive dead units and restore destroyed buildings. The attached skills are equivalent to level 15 magic, and the release interval is 720 hours. The Dark Sun Crown increases the attributes of units within the range. The aura needs to consume magic power and fighting spirit to open. The attributes are extremely powerful, equivalent to a large war statue, but it can move with the wearer. After selecting 5 items, Shen Xian gave the remaining choices to trusted players and NPCs, letting them choose them personally. Even I, who am not a thief, was lucky enough to choose one. The stacking effect of epic items is not obvious compared to legendary items, so Shen Xian pays more attention to democracy, so that players and NPCs can get what they like. More than 100 items were divided up, and the remaining ones were some unimportant things, which were powerful in PK, such as invincibility, instant blood magic, teleportation, etc. It is worth mentioning that the 3 pieces of equipment that Fule put on Shen Xian when leaving the elemental gate were not included. There is still not much room for choice of blueprint materials, only a dozen, and the remaining ones can only choose materials. Unfortunately, Dusk City has no ability to consume materials at all. The best way is to sell them instead of choosing to use them. Although epic blueprints have strategic significance, the cost of researching and developing level 1 is equivalent to level 5 or 6 of other ordinary level technologies, which is a big test for the economy. However, in the late game, When the levels of both sides are similar, the competition is about equipment, strategy, technology, and other hidden factors. If you don't have the ability to research and develop now, you can choose to store them, and some can be sold. It's no problem to sell valuable technology for hundreds of millions, as long as you find a suitable buyer. After getting the items, many NPCs and players were very excited. It was a happy ending. The lowest loyalty also increased by 5 points because of this reward, and the most was even 15 points. They were no longer likely to betray Shenxian. And the players who got the equipment leveled up a little. Even if their game level did not improve much, they were still the key men in the war and could not be replaced by other players. I will keep the things for you temporarily, Fulay said, and put the extra items into the star ring and memories, and began the forced plane transmission. She disappeared in the space and put the items in the safe elemental gate located in the fire element plane. If you want to start a war against the fire element plane, you first need a full set of fire-resistant equipment, which is an impossible task for a big country. The mission is over. The power of Dusk City has not increased on the surface, but the hidden power has greatly increased. A bunch of treasures belonging to Dusk City suddenly appeared on the treasure rankings, which made many players jealous. The Lewis Guild, which suffered heavy losses in the regional mission, did not let Terry's take revenge. The two sides maintained a momentum of not interfering with each other, which made many players very puzzled. Dusk City continues to recruit the remaining forces of Cry and use this once glorious guild for its own use. At this rate, it is just around the corner to enter the top 40. Kangdu Studio continues to develop slowly, and the studio members use their youth to study game technology. Cry will continue to weaken, but for Shenxian, that is the inevitable result of the rise of Dusk City, not his personal will. Shenxian imagined the development trend of the country and started the next development strategy. The next step is to conquer the alien plane and develop believers, supplemented by development, leveling, and war. What he didn't know was that an action against him was approaching. With more and more forces stepping onto the world stage, the history of players will be recorded in history books. The world has been silent for too long, and the war between countries is only the most primitive contradiction in the country. In the eyes of the gods, the world of mortals is a chess piece they manipulate, and they are the ultimate existence in this world. Remember, the world belongs to God. God created the world, and mortals should worship God. The last chapter of this volume, the next chapter will definitely be between 1 and 3 in the morning, the time is uncertain. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 335. In July, the kingdom has been in operation for a year, conquering players with the most realistic virtual experience. There is nothing that cannot be done in the kingdom. Many experts have asked whether expensive luxury goods in reality will still have the status of the past if virtual and reality cannot be distinguished. This is a difficult answer to determine. Many people believe that when rarity becomes common, luxury goods are no longer luxury goods, and a new thing will replace them. As a result, the luxury goods of the past have now become daily necessities, and the rich are more willing to invest in a space resource expedition team and form an online game guild. In the past, the rich used 1/10,000th of their money to invest in online games. When online games became the main theme of the world, they used 1/10 of their savings in online games. Changes were born from this, and hundreds of billions of profits could be born in online games. Therefore, those who are high above are often the rich. They can use money to buy equipment and hire people to help. Money is powerful, and the most prominent contradictions are precisely those rich people. They can realize war ambitions that cannot be realized in reality, political hegemony, and thus studios have been created, and countless players who make a living from games have been created. This is the age of online games. In Shanghai, in a cool room, Shen Xian browsed through the statistical tables, reading 10 lines at a glance. Opposite him was a virtual screen, where Miss Xiao was watching with her beautiful eyes, waiting for his reply. Is the incorporation of Cry finished? Dusk City has a total of 2,133 territories, a population of 1.503 million, an army of 131,000, and an overall ranking of 38th. Shen Xian muttered to himself. 1 month after the acquisition of Cry, Dusk City finally solved the remaining forces of Cry and resolved internal hidden dangers under the promotion of Miss Xiao, making the whole no longer fragile. Now, it is time to focus on the alternate plane. After Shen Xian completed the plane travel, Miss Xiao, who broke through level 100, also completed the plane travel at the cost of dying once and arrived at the other side of the space channel. Then it was Antbing, Tujukan, more and more people can travel in the plane, which is undoubtedly of great help to Dusk City's actions in the alternate plane. As the first power in the north, Dusk City will attract more NPCs concerns if it continues to expand underground. They do not have the strength to ignore them. They only have the power to curb the rise of other forces, and they have the power to control the other planes. This is a special advantage. Choosing the other planes will make their trade with the other planes more frequent and allow the Sunset God cult to thrive, so they will have the ability to fight against other forces. They may need to start a war, with the goal of gaining more than hundreds of thousands of human believers. The plan is still under consideration and no decision has been made. In the Saint Otero's Empire, the two major human empires located in the southwest corner of the Night Star continent, the four empire lords with vast territories gathered in the virtual conference center. The four lords refer to the four players with the largest number of territories in the empire. The first lord of the empire, Sun, a chestnut-haired man with a perfect face like a god, ranks fourth on the comprehensive ranking list and directly or indirectly controls more than 8,000 territories, which is half of the first place, Honghuang. Honghuang is a country, and the territory of a country is not restricted by the system. Sun is a marquis, and it is undoubtedly difficult to control a territory that is 3 times the upper limit of the territory. The other three lords are Xiaoqing Cheng, the boss of Fengguo Organization, God, the president of the largest borderless guild Unique, and Dead Christ, the boss of Fen, the strongest game studio in Europe. The four lords control about 19,000 territories, accounting for 1/3 of the number of territories in the empire. They are discussing the expedition to the Broken Continent. The Broken Continent is a place where orcs live, roughly in the southwest corner of the Night Star continent. The two are closely connected and face each other across the sea, making it easy to attack each other. The number of their territories is no longer growing. They need war to rely on for their promotion. Attacking the wild area can provide a huge increase in their reputation in the church. Most importantly, there are unimaginable enemies in the neighboring Pharaoh Empire, Phoenix Council, and South Sea Alliance. There is no decent force in the north of the Broken Continent. The strongest one ranks 55th and is not their opponent at all. The Far East Continent is an independent world located in the east of the Night Star continent. The Holy Dragon Kingdom is located in the north of the continent. It occupies the position of the largest country in the continent with its brave and fearless dragon knights. The ancestors of the Holy Dragon Kingdom once signed a contract with the Dragon God, so the Holy Dragon Kingdom can produce dozens of dragon knights every year. The Dragon Tomb is located in the northeast of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. The remains of dead dragons are buried in it. Legend has it that it is also a place where treasures are buried. In the dark environment, soul dragons wander in the magnificent tombs. They are the guards of the dragon tombs, protecting the noble bodies of the dragon clan from being profaned by ignorant humans. A dwarf and an ogre are moving side by side. The dwarf holds the ogre's thigh. His height is only the height of the ogre's thigh. The ogre shrank his body, and his head bumped against the narrow passage, which made him very unhappy. New York soldier, don't you think your arrival is a mistake? The dwarf stared at the passage where soil and rocks rolled down from time to time and whispered. Boss 3-1, Boss 2-1, Don't you know exactly why you asked me to come here? It's not just because I have information about the evil dragon Tiamat's divinity. It's also because I'm the strongest ogre in the world, a level 103 ogre, covered in epic and rare equipment. Yeah. The dwarf nodded after hearing this, feeling a little jealous. Isn't it just that he is closer to 2-1 boss? He actually has 4 epic items, while he only has 3. But he is 3-1. Strength determines status. Such a result is really a disgrace to his reputation. However, the turning point is coming soon. Maybe he will soon become a level 150 player in the game. But why don't you call me Boss Christopher? The first 3-turn great wizard in the country, who will soon become a mutated dragon wizard and the spiritual symbol of the dragon clan in the future. I know the system of the sect, but we are human, so please call me Boss Christopher on such occasions. Okay, boss, I think we are only one step away from our destination. The New York soldier said helplessly. A low whimpering sound rang in their ears, a kind of unkindness that made them shudder. A huge dragon head without a body appeared, which was 10 times the size of the New York soldier. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 336. Another plane. A plane that is 1/10 the size of the Night Star continent. This is a world made up of oceans, with large and small islands scattered all over the surface. The main race in the plane is the sea people who live on water. The fish people who live near the shore, the mermaids who live in the shallow sea, and the Naga people. The country gives players unlimited choices. Although controlling mermaids will be a little special and uncomfortable, it does not hinder players' pursuit and yearning for unknown things. In the center of the capital of the Ocean Empire Atlas, the bedroom of the god of storms left after the undersea earthquake has been a forbidden place for the sea people born here for about hundreds of years and cannot be entered. In the broken ruins, the wrinkled seabed cracks, the surging magma, the deep undercurrents, the shadowy creatures swimming around, the ruins everywhere, the scale is beyond people's imagination, and the size of a temple can be comparable to a human city with a population of 1 million. The core where the statue of the god of storms was placed now became a dangerous area connected by countless fragments. In that forbidden land lurking with danger, there was something that haunted countless players. The artifact, its name is, Yakru Tidebringer, the first artifact to be obtained by players in the kingdom. Yakru Tidebringer, artifact, the tool used by the first generation of the god of storms, Yakru, to control the ocean, attack power 8700, strength 7500, agility 5000, constitution 5000, wisdom 2800, spirit 2800, strength enhancement 50%, wisdom enhancement 50%, condition level 120, related auxiliary skills can reduce the level requirement, with 2500 points of divine damage, 1400 points of magic damage, movement speed enhancement 50%, skill tide, equivalent to level 13. Magic, needs to be released in non-underground, desert, and other areas, causing 185 points/second of magic damage to units within a range of 20 kilometers, lasting 60 seconds, release interval 120 hours, summoning Tide King, hero, level 120, HP 1.9 million, MP 250,000, ATK 45,000, Def 4,900, release interval 24 hours, maximum 1 at a time, innate ocean domain, causing the surrounding terrain to be eroded by the power of water, gradually changing to become a terrain suitable for Sea Clan. Battles, Sea Soul, fighting in the ocean to gain 10% attribute enhancement, Stigma, the holder of Yakru is the spokesperson of the storm god in the lower world, and the effect of spreading faith is increased by 100%. Canadian player Alien is now inside the temple. He is the son-in-law of the Ocean Empire Atlas and one of the top 100 forces in the country. In this plane, he has a level of 101 and can be said to have no opponent. And he received the decree from King Atlas, hoping that he would go to find the lost artifact Yakrutide Messenger. When the artifact really appeared in front of him, Alien was reluctant to return the artifact to the NPC. Everyone knows the value of the artifact. In the country, no artifact has been mastered by a player so far. Although the king asked me to bring it back, I can make any sacrifice for the artifact. Alien thought to himself, he would rather betray his country than give up the artifact, Yakrutide Bringer. Shanghai. The eastern part of this world's few major cities is now a city in the ocean. After 100 years of reclamation, Shanghai's area has more than doubled. The power of technology is infinite. The deep water port in the southeast, the Zhoushan area in the past, has become one of the world's largest ports, accepting goods from all over the world. The port is also a relatively chaotic area, and many criminals will enter a country through special means. The scattered cross-shaped equipment arranged in the sky is actually part of the Skynet. One is to fine-tune the weather to make the urban environment more suitable for human habitation, and the other is to monitor security. For organizations like the Gate, Skynet is in their hands. They can easily connect to the King of Heaven to understand the movements of the city's illegal residents. Taking advantage of the short break of the handover of the duty personnel, several men in suits and leather shoes jumped out of a small cabin at the bottom of a freighter. The leader was a sanctimonious fat man, who was Raphaël from Marseille, and the men behind him were also sanctimonious. The most notable feature was that they were no different from successful people. No one thought they were bad people at all. But those who know their details will understand how destructive these people are. Former French Rep Chief Instructor Raphaël, leader of the Hydralisk mercenary group Bleu, Assassin Butterfly. Many people knew that the first reaction of these people after sneaking into the country was not to eliminate them, but to think about how to get these unlucky stars out early. Shen Xian was one of them. Knowing the appearance of these people, he was opening the communication line with the New York soldiers. The New York soldiers were in Shanghai, a mysterious place, cooperating with Chris in the country to find the secrets in the Dragon Tomb. New York soldiers, pay attention, several dangerous people have entered Shanghai, Shen Xian informed him. I understand, the New York soldier nodded, I will make sure they never come back. He was ready, and then quickly returned to the game. He and Chris were about to challenge the soul of the level 115 evil dragon Tiamat. Things were quite busy recently, and everyone had their own responsibilities. In a mansion, Miss Yao also received a reminder from Aunt Bing, Miss, something may happen in Shanghai recently, the master wants you to be careful. Be careful? What is it? Miss Yao thought worriedly, and she didn't know why, but she couldn't help but guess whether the matter had something to do with Shen Xian. Then, the two of them logged into the game almost at the same time. In the conference room in the center of the city, they were going to hold a resolution on the alien plane. At present, Dusk City is like a country, with people responsible for economy, construction, and research and development. Ordinary affairs are handled by players and NPCs, and special decisions are made by Shen Xian. With decentralized power, players cannot do everything themselves. For example, the blueprints obtained from the Elemental Gate are now in the hands of the players who are responsible for construction and decide when to use them. A larger part still needs Shen Xian's decision, such as the development of the Sunset Cult, which will determine the future of Dusk City. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 337. The first thing to do when holding a meeting is to talk about the development of the Sunset religion in the past. Since the current situation of the Sunset religion is unknown, there is no way to talk about the agenda of the meeting. It has been almost 2 months since Shen Xian last appeared in front of Rast, and 2 years in the kingdom. With the power and wealth given to him by Shen Xian, this young lord successfully climbed to the position of the Grand Lord of the Principality. Through wars in the south and the north, land annexation, and suppression of opponents, Rast ruled a world with more than 1,000 territories, which became a hotbed for the Sunset religion to take root and sprout. The Earth religion, the Natural Research Society, the Nephi Church, many religious forces wanted to develop here but encountered many obstacles. With the cooperation of the local archbishop, many small forces had no way to intervene. In addition, Shen Xian hinted that Philip supported the kingdom of Cook, and the rule of the region was ironclad, with serious xenophobia, and even the king had difficulty intervening. Therefore, the number of believers of the Sunset cult has grown rapidly, reaching tens of thousands, which is dozens of times that of the main material plane. Humans are the best candidates for believers, which plays an important role in Shen Xian's rapid growth. Opening the map of the other plane, the whole picture of the huge continent is presented to the player. A small red circle of influence, the parish of the Sunset cult, is surrounded by many religious forces. Dusk City is bound to face a future of war with them. However, they may be able to take mitigating measures. Comparing with human history, players can take a variety of measures. If they blindly develop the Sunset cult, when the Sunset cult develops to a sufficient scale, it may be strangled in the cradle. However, if they adopt the method of dispersing forces, the intensified contradictions can be alleviated. For example, if the Sunset cult changes its name and Tujukan is the evil god, Tujukan can easily develop the church's power to the scale of hundreds of thousands of believers. Then, with Mist Erlin as the evil god, another church can be established, and a church with more than 100,000 believers can be developed. Then, Tujukan believed in Shen Xian, and Mist Erlin believed in Shen Xian. The experience shared by both of them could also be shared with Shen Xian, which could greatly reduce the risk. Finally, when the time is right, several major churches will merge, and Shen Xian can enjoy the experience of millions of believers in the church. A branching development model. A method that only players can think of and NPCs will never think of. NPCs cannot refer to the history in reality, which has become the biggest constraint for them. The current Sunset cult wants to expand with this development model. Under the influence of the Sunset cult, it is believed that the speed will be very fast and it will not take too long. The candidates can be determined, and non-evil players cannot take on the responsibilities. When the players excitedly assign these positions, they realize that their upgrade era has arrived. Imagine that they only need to develop hundreds of thousands of believers in the other plane like the Sunset cult, and they can easily reach level 100. If they level up normally, except for the mage, the leveling speed of other professions is as slow as a snail. The selection requirements are very high, and not everyone can do it. You need to be level 90, which is almost the minimum requirement for plane travel. Another requirement is that the player must have a certain management ability. In addition, it is impossible for no one to be supported in the other plane, so less than 10 lucky people are really selected. The players selected their development scope on the map, and then entered the other plane in batches to conduct a series of investigations. Shen Xian also returned to the Lord's mansion of Rast. It was expanded once compared to when he first saw it. It has an endless garden, a horse farm, and of course more of Rast's special hobby, Little Loli. It was afternoon when we arrived. Bathed in the sun, the endless scenery was refreshing, without the dark and weird underground. For Shen Xian, he also yearned for this kind of beauty, but since he was the dungeon lord, yearning for light was a kind of stupid behavior. Rast rode a white horse with several nobles. Among the local forces, Rast, who was not married yet, was undoubtedly the object of admiration and secret love of many noble ladies. Many old nobles also knew Rast's special hobby, so they deliberately dressed their daughters cute and attractive, hoping to climb up the high branch of this young noble. No one knew why Rast rose to prominence. When Shen Xian appeared in front of him, everyone seemed to understand. A mysterious figure, Shen Xian did not release any breath, and the armor he wore was a proof of strength. The calm steps and posture, the twisted patterns drawn with magic blood on the armor, and the rare mysterious gems inlaid on the weapons, as long as he was a noble who should be knowledgeable would understand how prominent this person's identity was. Then, Rast knelt in front of Shen Xian, bowed respectfully, and said, "Rast is waiting for your orders." "Follow me." Shen Xian whispered a few words in his ear, and the two walked away at a leisurely pace. The remaining nobles did not come forward, and some were stopped by their elders and stared at fiercely. Shen Xian once ordered Rast to build a large-scale temple inside the principality as the foundation of the church's missionary work. With Rast's strength at the time, of course, he could not afford the cost. Because he was going to build a temple equivalent to the peak of the fourth stage, with a complex temple group, a guard corps, a court, a prison, the cost was nearly 10 million gold and various resources. However, Rast is now the Marquis of the Principality and has unimaginable power. Last pointed to the distant city center with a pious look, "There, everything you need, sir." Shen Xian looked at the newly built city. His vision passed through the city wall and the streets. In the crowded city center, he saw the circular temple with a moat. It was like a fortress, overlooking the mortal world below. Each entrance was guarded by several level 60 guards. Going up the steep stairs, the huge square in the center was enough to accommodate thousands of people. The statue was there. In all directions, there were more than a dozen large and small temples, representing the future power of the Sunset Cult. "Sir, the foundation-laying ceremony of the temple will be held tomorrow." "I will be there," Shen Xian said. "The next half-month will be very busy, and it is estimated that there will be many 3K. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 338. The Sunset Cult is in the new city of Painyalis in Rast. After thousands of craftsmen work day and night, the temple has a status comparable to that of the Earth Cult in the holy place of Gaddon in the other plane. An hour and a half later, the night passed, and after the dawn of the next day, at noon, the temple was bathed in the afterglow of the setting sun. Fanatic believers were gathering towards the temple. In the square, tens of thousands of believers were piously prostrating on the ground. Several meters high stakes were erected. Under the escort of the religious army of the other plane, the Sunset Tribunal, the first-level profession, mainly the Twilight Chanter, pushed several priests into the field. The Twilight Chanter is a new profession created by Shen Xian, who studied the priesthood of many gods and extracted the power of these gods by deception. Similar to the priesthood of every religion, they are the guardians of religion, born for holy wars, and fighting for gods. As for how to achieve it specifically and how to deceive gods, it involves complex technology, which will not be repeated here. When Archbishop Set, who stood in the center of the square, read out the names of the people who were humiliated and tied to the stake, there was a commotion among many believers below. Maximilian, the archpriest of the Natural Research Society. Lebaton, the leader of the Third Knights of the Natural Research Society. The head of the Sixth Court of the Tarot Church. After the long list of names was read out, Rast, who was standing behind the temple, trembled for a moment, and then regained his composure. He made a devout worship gesture to the only God they believed in, and then, at his signal, the saint in a white robe with a dazzling black sun slowly walked out of the temple. In front of the believers, the saint's steps were elegant without dust, and her posture was beautiful without filth, like an angel, and could not be blasphemed. When she walked in front of the believers in the square immediately shouted, but behind the saint, a few vicious eyes shot over, and it was a few pagans tied to the stake. Shen Xian stood behind Rast. "Is this the saint you selected?" Rast immediately replied, "Yes, sir, She is an orphan. Her father and mother were judged and died. She is willing to give everything for the church. I wonder if you are interested in her." Shen Xian looked at the back of the saint. The graceful curves outlined by the white holy robe are indeed a rare beauty. Her piety is also unique. Although the cult does not require piety, this value can still be checked like favorability and loyalty. However, it is impossible for him to agree. It is okay to appreciate it. Everyone has a love of beauty, but if you really do it yourself, I am afraid it will be meaningless. No. Rast Shen Xian shook his head and replied, "Don't ask me this kind of question. You should understand that many places in the temple have been invaded. Shen Xian's strength is stronger than anyone present." He noticed that several suspected pagans were lurking around the temple. The lowest was level 70 and the highest was level 100. They looked sneaky and plotted something bad. Last looked unaware and was shocked. "Really? Please forgive my negligence. I will order people to catch them immediately." "No," Shen Xian stopped him. "I need believers to understand the power of the sunset cult." "I understand." He nodded solemnly and turned to continue watching the trial ceremony. Dozens of pagans were tied to the stake, and believers pointed at them. After a while, when the sun just sank into the sky, the ceremony began. At this time, Miss Xiao used the power of tearing space to reach Paniel's. Because her spiritual connection with the mage tower needed to be cut off when traveling in the other plane, Miss Xiao spent a lot of effort to come here. "How is it? How is the trial ceremony going?" Miss Xiao knew that today's ceremony was the prelude to the Sunset Cult's announcement of involvement in religious forces. It was a warning to the surrounding religious forces and warned them of their existence in order to carry out larger-scale missionary work to attract the attention of other religions and provide cover for other players. "Some people want to take the pagans away," Shen Xian said disapprovingly. "Then destroy them." Miss Xiao pursed her lips and murmured. She used her spiritual power to scan the temple and looked at it in confusion. Sure enough, they were all believers of the Nature Research Society, who believed in the God of Nature. In the main material plane, the believers of the God of Nature were mostly elves, but they became humans here, and even the name of the church changed. She helplessly glanced at several people who were declared dead. The power of religion is infinite. It can allow a powerless person to defeat a beast, and it can also produce infinite contradictions and disasters. Religion is a contradictory thing, but from a personal perspective, she had to destroy those who tried to harm the Sunset God cult. The saint knelt down and began to pray to the gods. The red sun hidden in the dusk slowly turned black, and the thick dark clouds gradually dissipated. The sky was clear with a dark blue color, and half of it was the black sun. The solemn hymns that sounded were like prayers announcing the end of the world, and the gorgeous aurora was like a signal from the gods to witness the mileage. All the lights in the city slowly went out, surrendering to the power of the gods. The believers knelt down in the miraculous scene. In this age of faith, the gods are the highest embodiment of all wills. Those who believe in God will have eternal life, which is what every charlatan will say to the believers. When the believers knelt down, the pagans tied to the stake also stubbornly called on their gods, hoping to be rescued. Unfortunately, the gods did not appear. These blasphemers lurking in the sunset cult needed to be judged. Several dusk chanters approached them, holding torches of blazing holy fire in their hands, spreading the power of God on them. Finally, when the syllables of the hymn in the sky jumped to a terminator, the flames spread everywhere, and the black holy flames dozens of meters high rose from the stake. The pagans twitched in pain, screamed and prayed, and their bodies slowly turned into ashes and were purified. Dozens of druids from the Nature Research Society who wanted to rescue them found that their bodies could not move, and the pressure was always shrouded them. They looked around in fear and did not find anyone. They didn't know why their lives were not lost. The timid believers immediately fled, and the remaining few jumped out immediately after the pressure ended. "Take them away," the leading druid elder Paired said in a low voice. Although he didn't understand why they didn't get into trouble, he had to make sacrifices with his infinite faith in the god of nature. He howled at the sky, making a beast-like sound, and his clothes slowly tore apart, and a 5-6 meter long vigorous black wolf appeared in front of the believers. Several other druids took a few graceful steps in the sky and arrived in front of the stake. Seeing the scene there, the druids' faces turned pale. They clenched their fists and looked at the charred bodies of their companions. "Rest in peace, buddy, we will avenge you." They also lay on the ground and turned into beasts. The giant claws with bloody winds swung at the innocent believers in the square, and then the giant wolf jumped up and wanted to attack the saint. Undoubtedly, the saint was the one with the highest status in the Sunset Cult, and they didn't know Shen Xian was also there. At the moment when the giant claws touched the saint's body did not move at all, and her expression did not show fear. Paired looked up and saw a wizard floating in the air smiling at him. Roar! Paired let out another vicious howl, and swung his huge claws at the beautiful girl in the sky. The girl's body was like mist blown by the wind, and it dissipated in an instant. Behind him, several ice spears as long as dragon spears pierced his back. Blood oozed down, and a number of 6,400, 6,200, and 5,900 appeared above Pered's head. His body fell into a deep cold and could not move, as if it was a sculpture frozen in ice, frozen at the moment of leaping. Several confused demons and fallen demons crawled out of the black vortex under their feet. The believers were a little scared. When they recognized that they were the friends of mankind, the devil, the believers all cheered. "Kill them! Judge these pagans!" The believers shouted. Their hearts were still beating fast, but seeing this bloody scene, they were all impulsive. "Damn it, don't believe them." Pered had just broken free from the ice, and the 100-level archdruid saw the fanatical scene of the people. "They are evil, destroy them," Pered yelled, making a sound that the beasts could understand, and pounced on them again, and dozens of demons immediately turned into a pile of corpses. He proudly tore the demons apart with his claws, but he didn't expect that several ice spears came from behind again. This time it was even more fierce than the last time. The first blow was like a god hitting his spine to break his back. His huge claws grasped the ground tightly, and his body was knocked back several meters. The huge 9,200 jumped out, and in a blink of an eye, only 2/3 of his health was left. More demons appeared. Fighting in the Crimson Domain, the demons are endless, even the lowest demons can still be terrifying. How many of those druids have participated in the real war with heretics? The peace of the other plane has been maintained for so long that many believers have long forgotten what the result of the war of gods when the faith was divided was. There were also several players from Dusk City who had just arrived in the other plane. Enjoying the peak power of more than level 100, their bodies were like eagles, emitting sharp light like lightning. The epic weapon cut the flesh of the beasts slightly, and the temple was stained with the blood of the pagans. Shen Xian had no intention of stopping it, and let the believers watch. When more and more pagans appeared, they found that they were facing an irresistible power. What happened? The rescuers of the Nature Research Society thought confusedly, did God abandon them? So the battle ended quickly, the pagans were all dead, and the faith in the hearts of the believers became more intense. They would spread the enthusiasm to their relatives, friends. This city, this area, and this country would eventually be included as part of the diocese. The war was over, and the confused demons and the fallen demons cleaned up the blood on the white square. Several players who had arrived in Poniales had lost their traces according to the previous agreement. The players would lurk in various corners of the different planes and develop on their own. Shen Xian and Miss Yao were left to deal with the next things. The next thing might be a holy war between churches. Shen Xian stood on the rooftop of the temple, with the cold wind blowing on his face, thinking. Just one chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 339. In the temple, Shen Xian's plan that Shen Xian did not mention is that the sunset cult needs to attract the attention of some religions on the mainland. I believe that the Nature Research Association will definitely take revenge at all costs after being humiliated. This is not a simple matter of face, but involves a religion of majesty. It's war again. Where does the benevolence, justice, and etiquette come from in the fantasy world? In the eyes of the gods, they really don't need to pay attention to the life and death of a mortal. When it comes to religion, the level of war is different. If a country's strongest force is in the palace, it must be religion. Every religion has the habit of selecting babies with outstanding talents from among its believers and training them to become temple guards and devout saints. Most importantly, because of the existence of gods, most of the armies under the management of the church have a fighting spirit that is not afraid of life and death. Among the plains, religion thus gathers the strongest power on the continent. In addition, once the god deems it necessary, he can send his apostles to come for reinforcements. Each god is in charge of a world, which magicians call the kingdom of God. It is a new world generated after stripping off the main material plane and swallowing the void. The kingdom of God is the seventh stage territory, with the true body of the god, and is a paradise. The world is a gathering of heroic spirits gathered over tens of millions of years. The devout souls of mortals take special forms after death. They are the swords of the gods. At the same time, these tens of thousands of warriors over 100 levels are the main force against the abyss and hell. The main force of the people. Believers who possess magical powers above level 10 can summon divine apostles. The level of the apostles who descend under the influence of plain laws will be reduced, but thousands of apostles can easily obliterate all the powerful men in a plane. But most of the time, the immortal heroic spirits receive the glory of the gods in the kingdom of God, the praise of the lower world, and engage in endless wars with demons, undead, and devils in the most terrifying places in the world. I wonder if he has such an honor? Can you get the wrath of the gods? The bloody battle is approaching, and Shen Xian also wants to experience how far his strength has grown before then. Level cannot explain everything, only facts can prove it. Under the guidance of Rust, the saint of the sunset cult walked in. Her name was Rodlin, a great nobleman of the Cook Kingdom. It has been passed down for more than 20 generations that her family was ruined because of the earth cult. Shen Xian and Miss Yao stood at the foot of the statue in the center of the temple. Rodlin stared at the two of them quietly, with a detached look after suffering a disaster. There was no obvious expression on her face, with a hint of sadness. Compared to Rust, she could be said to be more mature. You're here, how are you preparing for the teaching army? The Nature Research Society's revenge is coming soon. Preparations are underway. Currently, there are 300,000 religious believers. We can quickly gather a 50,000 religious army, but it will take half a year until the religious army has sufficient combat effectiveness. Rodlin answered respectfully. Okay, have you seen the south? That is the territory of the Nature Research Society, and we want to make it our parish, do you understand? Yes. She answered quietly but decisively and backed away. Sure enough, a new war is not far away. The teaching army composed of civilians alone may not be enough to fight against the deep-rooted forces of the Nature Research Association, Miss Yao said, leaning on the statue. She glanced at Shen Xian with her clear eyes, and then said, "Do you need my help?" "Certainly." Shen Xian blinked and took out the map. It is rumored that there are two major forces in the south of the principality. We need to regain them. Lord Rust, who is that in the temple? Rust stood under the pillars of the temple's outer corridor and thought for a moment. Rodlin, I don't know. Maybe he is the messenger of my god. But, I think I feel a familiar power. The saint looked back at the temple. There was no one at the bottom of the statue, illuminated by the cold moonlight, as if it had never appeared before. Shanghai, Kangdu Bank. Miss Yao carried the small bag and asked Shen Xian before leaving, "Will you accompany me home?" Shanghai seems to be uneasy recently. Several employees in the bank still looked at the two of them ambiguously, staring at them as if they were watching a show. Watching them? Yeah, then you shouldn't have left with me. Shen Xian thought for a moment, then walked straight out of the gate. Looking up from the bank gate, he could see the dark sky and tall buildings. Miss Yao stared at the figure who suddenly left, and said softly to the people around her, "Aunt Bing, does it really not matter?" "Yes," the woman beside him said. "Let's go, people like this have nothing to worry about." Although she said so, she still looked back at the place where the figure disappeared, and finally stamped her feet to leave. Shen Xian walked along the street for a few minutes, wanting to take the express bus in the city, when the portable computer on his body suddenly sent out a signal. His footsteps suddenly stopped. It was from the New York soldiers. The air around him became a little dull. He connected to the city Skynet. On the screen, red targets moved quickly. With the power of technology, the special clothes he wore could protect and cooperate with people to complete more difficult tasks. Movement, giving them superhuman speed, reflexes, and force strength. The red dot was approaching him. At the same time, the graphics behind the red dot were affected by interference signals and disappeared one after another, making it difficult to track. Shen Xian hid in an area where information was blocked and walked on the street like a normal person. In the dark, unmonitored area, several black figures suddenly came into contact. The white youth standing in front of the black shadows was quite tall, wearing simple clothes, with bright eyes. The men facing him were hunched over, wearing individual tactical uniforms, and seemed to be hiding weapons. WTP number 123 Wario, number 531 Butterfly, number 1720 Hydralisks, nice to meet you. New York soldiers, what tricks are you playing? Do you want to protect the Lord? Several players whose identities were exposed had a flash of panic on their faces, cursing, and then rushed over like lightning. They were famous players in the game, and they also had impressive achievements in real life. So, after playing online games to a certain extent, it is like the common revenge through online games in novels, and it is not the author Yaya who makes a fortune, but it depends on the world that gives this phenomenon the possibility to breed. Several figures came into contact with each other at a terrifying speed. The New York soldier was not at all inferior to the three opposite. The close combat was undoubtedly concise and clear. However, the three forgot that although they blocked Skynet, the technology of the door was still capable of providing him with enough intelligence. For example, the three of them were registered in Interpol and had detailed information, but the New York soldiers had relatively few or none at all. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 340. Shen Xian. A lovely figure appeared on the communication screen, Miss Yao. Seeing Shen Xian allowed the communication, Miss Yao immediately chose to terminate the communication strangely. The screen was suddenly closed again, and the network screen reappeared in the field of vision. Shen Xian seemed to be very clear about her tricks. He shook his head and did not choose to call back. He knew that even if he called back, there might not be any reply, so he logged into the game. It was early in the morning. After experiencing so many things, it might be impossible to sleep peacefully. Shen Xian logged into the game, and then Chris sent a message. Were we attacked? Those idiots, bastards, and gangsters of the Terry's group dared to do such a thing to the boss and injured the New York soldiers. How can I complete the task next, Master? How is the progress of the task? Shen Xian asked slowly. After defeating the soul of Tiamat, 3 materials are needed to build a barrier to enter the hidden world of Tiamat. Star Crystal, Philosopher's Stone, and Hell's Heart. The first one is used to open the cracks that tear the space, the second one is used to maintain the energy required for the plane channel, and the third one is used to specify the final goal of the space channel. Chris Ford continued depressedly, each one is a priceless epic material. I don't know if I can defeat Tiamat after entering her lair. Is the mission of the godhood really so expensive? Of course, gods and humans are fundamentally different. How can you see the return without paying? Report. I won't talk about guidance. If you want money, go find Frostmourne or someone from another faction. In short, I want to see results within a month. Boss, can't you send a few helpers? You know, although I am a third-turn archmage, it is not so easy to deal with ancient dragons. I heard that 7-2 is a beauty and is close to you. Why don't you transfer her over? Everyone has their own things. I am not familiar with 7-2. Besides, her main job is intelligence work. For some reason, Shen Xian knew the existence of 7-2, but he didn't seem to remember such a person. In addition, he also needed to give a small gift to the Terry's group, and then comforted Chris, who had lost a big meat shield, and unfolded the map, and drew two big circles in the south of the principality. The two circles represent the Devil Lord Gullians and the Necromancer when late, the former is an NPC, and the latter is a player. Corresponding to the mysterious wisdom skull and the Freemasonry, lurking in the desolate area of the principality. In fact, because the leveling speed in the later stage is too slow, and the leveling speed is not as fast as the leveling speed, other players have also tried to establish churches. The church is a way to increase the leveling speed. As long as a single player becomes a god, he will not be afraid of those who once hated him, and he can even take revenge at will without anyone caring. Many players are trying this. Now the Sunset God cult needs to attract the attention of other religions to cover other players, and the strength of the church army is too weak. He urgently needs a large number of cannon fodder to fight for him. Those small churches are undoubtedly the best choice. Let's deal with the Devil Lord Gullians first. Shen Xian said to himself. He stepped out of the temple quietly. Under the dark lights, the newly recruited church soldiers were still training under the management of several dusk chanters. The average level of the recruited church soldiers was only 15. It was really a foolish dream to rely on such an army to fight other religions. The desolate area in the south of the principality, which was densely covered with wild beasts, was where many small churches were active. Several believers in black robes followed by several fallen demons were patrolling in the brightly flamed area. A black shadow flashed by. What's going on? Is there an invasion? You didn't see it wrong? The fallen demon didn't notice it, so how could there be an invasion? A believer beside him answered immediately. Shen Xian's figure then appeared in a place with bright lights, blood patterns drawn on the ground, and statues placed in the cliff. He faintly felt that the powerful aura here and the level of the believers here were also higher than those in the periphery, roughly at the level of 30 or 40. Tonight is a night of sacrifice. The believers of the Wisdom Skull will hold a sacrifice and offer 99 babies to the great omnipotent Master Gillians. The babies were placed on the magic circle, and the believers then cut open the babies' bodies and let their blood seep into the magic circle. As more and more blood flowed out, the magic circle became brighter and brighter. Shen Xian sensed a powerful aura that crossed the constraints of time and space and descended into this world. Then, he stepped out. Gillian's was just a small lord in hell, about level 120, which was nothing in hell. After accidentally drifting to the material plane, he enjoyed the life of a local emperor here. He can give mortals what they want and trade with them. Whether it is wealth, power, authority, or beauty, all can be achieved through special means, and he can enjoy delicious blood food. Today, an accident happened. When he appeared, a man stood in front of him. He easily stabbed several believers who rushed out, and then abused him. Not only was the mortal much higher in level than him, but the equipment on his body was also extremely luxurious. He seemed to have seen several things of big men who needed to look up to him. He wanted to beg for mercy, but the other party did not give him a chance. He didn't get a chance to speak until his health was below 50%. "Mortal, what do you want?" "I want your submission." "What?" "Gillians is the Devil Lord, how can he submit to you?" He screamed subconsciously. He had eaten the ignorant warriors who wanted to punish him many times, but he changed his mind immediately because he saw how powerful that man was. The nimble figure passed through a shadow in the sky. He was attacked unconsciously again, with a full 20,000 damage, and he only had 2 million health points in total, so he could withstand a few more. "Wait a minute, mortal, what do you want to do?" He submissively blocked the attack with his claws. "War, my church needs warriors like you." Shen Xian stopped when he heard his words. He stared at Gillians with cold eyes, as if he would be killed if he resisted again. He was afraid and suddenly recognized the special powers on several pieces of equipment. He then knelt down, worshipping at the feet of a mortal with a height of more than 10 meters, because he saw that breath, and it was definitely not wrong. It seemed that hell was the breath of the greatest master. Although he didn't know what would happen, as long as he could taste the soul of a mortal, he could do anything. Strength determines class. The Devil Lord Gullians believed this very much. He slowly climbed up, very satisfied with his choice. His future would be limitless if he could be related to the Master of Hell. With a hint of cunning, Gullians said, "Sir, a great being like you is definitely not satisfied with conquering a small territory, and I found that you lack enough assistance. Do you need my advice? For example, the information of Tongji Club?" He then left. "Okay, let's go." Shen Xian was satisfied with his sense of time. Since today's action went smoothly, it would be better to get things done together.